Chet Holmgren and Victor Wembanyama might mark the next generation of NBA bigs, so it's only right that we take a close look at their first head-to-head encounter. Let's start with Chet Holmgren going into his freshman season at Gonzaga at 7'1" with a 7'6" wingspan. The primary way in which Holmgren affected Sunday's final was with his passing. The Minneapolis-born forward was unselfish and let the game come to him without forcing anything. Holmgren was constantly surveying the floor and making mature decisions. He played with his head up, using his height to see over defenses and using his length to get creative with his angles. However, Holmgren had 2 turnovers to his 5 assists. He was a little bit too loose with the ball at times and should have done a better job taking care of the rock. Sometimes, Holmgren can look too casual, even though that is not the case at all. For example, this poor attempt at a high-low pass to Kent's low with and keeps close to his body. Not only can he initiate his own offense, but Holmgren can also attack the basket in a few dribbles. In these clips, he first forces the foul by being physical with his drive, and then Holmgren is deceptive with his first step, takes the bump, and uses his length to finish. But while Holmgren does play pretty tough, as I will get into in a bit, he is still far too skinny. That means that he cannot always absorb contact or get to his spots. Holmgren is rail thin, and that can just be an impediment at times. One big thing to look out for in the future will be seeing how his frame fills out. On the exterior, Holmgren actually only made 1 3 and took just 8 shots, but it still felt like he dominated the game. Holmgren had a very good tournament, making 7 of his 13 threes. The fact that he still looked superior to everyone with his outside shot not falling is indicative of just how impactful Holmgren can be on a game. On defense, Chet Holmgren was imperial against France. The USA forward ended with 0 blocks and 0 steals, but that cannot possibly measure his defensive impact on this final. Holmgren's defense can be broadly categorized into 2 branches, but let's start with how he looked in space. The answer to that is tremendous. This gets guards against Holmgren, but Team USA embraced this switch. Holmgren was able to backpedal quickly, stay in front of his attacker, and still really skinny, and while that is true, he plays tougher than that. Holmgren got into Wembanyama more than once, giving his all to make the French big man Now, let's go with Victor Wembanyama, who at 17 years old comes in at 7'3" with a 7'9" wingspan. With Wembanyama, we have to start on defense. As is the norm for him, Wembanyama absolutely controlled the paint. The French big is a defensive powerhouse who blocks everything coming his way. In this tournament, Wembanyama averaged nearly 5 blocks per game. This dominance was on display against Team USA. Wembanyama blocked everything, from opponents coming to the paint to guys attempting to drive on him. Wembanyama was equally comfortable inside and outside the paint. When he had to venture out, he was nimble enough to move backwards and alter shots. By no means is he a stiff. Wembanyama even had this nice defensive possession against Holmgren, keeping up with him on the drive and bothering him on the take. However, I also thought that Wembanyama was a little bit too eager. His 8 blocks were outstanding, evidently, but Wembanyama also fouled out. At times, he could have reined his efforts in and been more aware of his foul situation and impact on the team. Overall, Wembanyama also might not have played as physical as Holmgren. On offense, I thought Wembanyama showed his ability to play above the rim. That will immediately be scalable in any NBA context. With his gargantuan wingspan and standing reach, Wembanyama has no problems catching lobs, running the floor, and staying in touch for offensive rebounds. He dominated the airspace against Team USA, picking up everything that went above the rim. Watch this tip dunk here, for instance. Wembanyama also went into his offensive bag, showing that he has a variety of offensive tools. Here, Wembanyama shows off his touch with this sweet fadeaway. Finally, he pops after setting the screen and is able to comfortably drain the triple. He is still really skinny as well, but he did not play soft and he forced the issue when he had to. After that, he was perfect from the line. But for all the tremendous flashes, I thought Wembanyama settled a little too much. He had it going from the interior, but Wembanyama took plenty of jump shots which were a little questionable. He's shown that he can make them, as we can see from his average of 14 points per game, but Wembanyama also struggled from deep. In this tournament, he made just 4 of 22 threes. Wembanyama took 5 trays against Team USA, his second highest tally in the tournament. He might have been better served keeping things simpler on this occasion. But still, Wembanyama finished among the best scorers in the competition and made his presence felt every game. So obviously we are just talking about one game here, but what is also evident to me is that when we're talking about CHET HOLMGREN and Victor Wembanyama, we are discussing two potentially generational talents. If we're talking strictly about the head-to-head matchup that happened over the weekend, then well, I think that Holmgren might have gotten the slight advantage. He was just having a really good game, impactful with his defense, with his mobility. He was passing the ball really well, finding others, and he was letting the game come to him on offense. In the past, Holmgren has shown to be a very good self-creator though, so even though he didn't get to show that off versus France, I do expect that to be the case as he embarks on his freshman season at Gonzaga. Looking forward to next year's draft cycle, I think it is obvious very early on that Holmgren will be one of the names that is most talked about. And that is for good reason. He can shoot the ball, he can stretch the floor, he can create for others, he can handle the rock, and then on defense he is just very versatile with his blend of mobility and rim protection. Going forward, my main concern with him is just seeing how his body fills out, because his feel for the game is excellent. But even though Team USA beat France, that should not take away from what Victor Wembanyama has done all tournament long. At 17 years old, he is playing up his age, and still he was laughably dominant. Even against the US, he still put up 22 points, had 8 blocks, and just overall, if any other prospect had that type of game, we would be talking about it for days. When we're talking about Wembanyama, obviously it's still very early on, but it is also evident to me this early that we're talking about a generational type of prospect. Wembanyama could be one of those guys who comes into the NBA or just into the world of basketball in general and sets a before and an after. Because to be doing what he's doing at 17 years old is absurd. And the good part about this, well, for me and for I guess the rest of us, is that Wembanyama is not draft eligible until 2023. So we still have at least a couple more years enjoying him, and we will be keeping a close eye on him in this channel. In regards to any questions that I may have about Wembanyama, well, I think the first answer is similar to Holmgren, which is seeing how his body holds up, especially given that Victor is even taller than Chet. And I guess we will also have to keep a close eye on his three-pointer. He had a disappointing tournament in that respect, but I don't really have any worries about it long term. Because going forward, 5, maybe even probably shorter than that, 3 to 5 years into the future, we're talking about a guy who can protect the rim, who can absolutely patrol the paint like Rudy Gobert for instance, but at the same time, he pretty much has unlimited range going out to the three-point line. As always, if you enjoyed the video, make sure to leave a like. I hope you enjoyed this kind of change of pace here that we've done from scouting reports. Make sure to leave a comment, tell me what you think of Chet, tell me what you think of Victor, and if you enjoyed the channel, if you want to see more videos like this, as always, make sure to subscribe. Take care, and I'll see you guys next time.